has been doing well wherever you are in the world, if it's summer or winter. I hope you've been taking some time to become better friends with the squishy urge blob in your skull. If you're new to Brain Tech Support Live today, what we do here is we explore the things we want to be doing more of in life, and we talk about the supports that help us handle the really difficult challenges, the thoughts and the feelings that come up as we do more of what we want to give our time and energy to in life, really what we want to grow. Next weekend, so next Sunday, I'll be doing a Garden of You workshop, an online edition. This is the workshop that I've been doing in various places around the world. It's been amazing to do the workshop in person, but of course a lot of people can't access an in-person workshop. So we're gonna start doing some regular online versions. The first online edition of the Garden of You workshop is happening next Sunday. There are 2 spots left. I like to keep it cozy enough, but small enough that when we're sharing and we're creating in the workshop, there's enough time for everybody to share and to get personalized feedback and things like that. So there are limited spots and there are 2 spots left. The link to the Garden of You workshop, you can find it in the description for this live stream. But also, I think if you probably Google the Garden of You workshop, I imagine there aren't that many Garden of You workshops in the world. You can probably find it that way, or you can find it linked through my social media. Liz, it's good to see you. I missed doing the live streams as well. It's really great. Doing Brain Tech Support Live is a great opportunity to always connect with everybody and see the kinds of things that we're growing and navigating in our adventures. And so speaking of the Garden of You, something that we can incorporate into our discussion today, so of course we're gonna be talking about mental fitness skills, we're gonna be talking about things we wanna grow, is to consider what you want to grow. The reason the Garden of You workshop and the exercise in particular, to visualize ourselves as a garden and talk about how we take care of the garden proactively. It's a really excellent exercise that I like to share, for instance, with coaching clients when we first start working together. And I just encourage everybody when they're heading out on a mental health and fitness adventure to consider that kind of approach, is because it shifts our focus to what we want to grow and what we want to see. And quite often when we've been struggling with our mental health, we then default to the same kind of patterns and habits that kind of fueled the struggles with mental health. We don't want to approach building mental health skills with the same habits that got us into the struggles with mental health. And so even today, as we're exploring, I encourage everybody to think about what it is first that you want to grow. Because for instance, if we say, hey, I've got anxiety about this thing, how do I deal with it? There's nothing wrong with anxiety about a thing. There's nothing wrong with a horrible intrusive thought about something. So I don't have anything to share about how to deal with it. Seeing it as a problem is a problem. But if we look first at what you want to do, then we can talk about that. So if we say, okay, when I go to work right now, I avoid doing some actions that are useful to me. I keep procrastinating on them, but I avoid them because whenever I do them, the intrusive thoughts come up. So I want to be able to do those actions. How might I start to approach the intrusive thoughts differently? Then we can have a discussion about skills, about exercises, because it's clear what we want to do and then how the compulsions are getting in the way of that. So let's all kind of consider that approach today as we start to explore questions, as we explore topics. Because Prince here, you brought up blasphemous thoughts. Feels like you hear something in your head. Are these our thoughts we hear or something else? So what you're doing right now is called reassurance seeking. So, because that something else, I assume is going to mean there's like something bad. Are these our thoughts, or is there something bad? But also, it could be the other way around, where you're like, oh no, because if it's my thought, then that's like more blasphemous or something like that. What is it that you want to give time and energy to in life instead of spending time like checking and categorizing experiences? So we say, look, the answer to that question that you asked that wouldn't be helpful, right? In either direction. If I shared an answer in either direction, it's not going to change that right now like, we're spending time just like checking on this stuff because of a fear. What would you like to give your time and energy to instead of checking on stuff like that? And Dylan, thank you for sharing the Garden of You workshop link. I appreciate it. One of the reasons that in the Garden of You workshop too will explore actually drawing and mapping things out that we want to see is because when it, and this is something that everybody can apply, and even you can think about how you would apply this in the week ahead. When we can see a change, when we can see where we want to go, we do much better at actually going there, at actually following the steps as we navigate to wherever it is we want to go. Because we're better at following maps than we are at just following verbal instructions. You can think of this as any time you've ever asked somebody like where something is in the city or where you need to go to do something. And if they just tell you, if they just say, yeah, you know, go left at this gas station and you're gonna take a right at the second donut shop down that road, but on the bend you don't like keep going on the bend, and then after you curve around the bend, then you're gonna take another right, then go straight. Then maybe there's kind of like a big tree, and so the place you're looking for, the really, really good pie shop, is after the really big tree, but before the fairgrounds. That is then when you're actually navigating, difficult to remember, as opposed to having a map where we can actually see where we are right now, and we can see the environment, we can understand the context, we can situate ourselves in that environment, and we can make choices. Because when we look at a map, as we're navigating, if we run into a challenge, we can quickly see that there might be a better route. That's a key reason that we draw out what we're doing and what we're changing when we're working on mental health and fitness skills, when we're working on recovery. I think too often we approach this stuff as just things to talk about. We look at recovery, even these big life changes, that we're going to talk about a big life change, or we're going to just listen to some podcasts, or we're going to listen to some live streams, we're going to watch some videos, we're going to read some books. And then somehow that's just going to, in our heads, become the change. Or we expect that if we load up lots and lots of knowledge, then when we're just out in the world, that we're going to remember some of it. And that's going to help us make the change we want to make. We don't work like that. That's just not how, I mean, I'm sure some people, if you tell them a whole bunch of directions and things like that, then when they're out in the world, they may then suddenly remember some of those directions in the moment and make some changes. But that's really difficult. we make it so much easier for ourselves when we work with what actually works well for people. And the thing is, recovery and mental fitness takes action. So unless we're like actively doing stuff, actively, listening to, say like this live stream or something like that, and then turning that into real change, nothing actually changes. Things continue as they were. So this week, think about any kind of ideas or anything like that that come up from listening to the live stream today. How can you turn them into a map? How can you turn them into something physical that you'll actually be able to see during the week in the places where you want to make change? Because the brain's not going to remember, like 98% of the time. Sean, thanks a lot for the kind message, Sean. I appreciate you joining today and sharing that. I hope you're having a peaceful weekend as well. Jisha, you are watching a movie right now. That's great. Please put your phone away and enjoy the movie. Husna, hello. Bora said, I'm trying to work on being less emotionally reactive and not clapping back or getting angry at everything impulsively. I can't figure out how I can work on this. Have you looked at, in those moments, so if we look at like clapping back or getting angry as controlling something, right? What are you trying to control? It's often even something that's kind of vulnerable. So we see the thing somebody else says or something, even something wrong they say, as threatening. What is it threatening? What do you want to control or protect by controlling what somebody else says? So I would look there first. Minchi, hello. Welcome. I hope you're having a good weekend. Yeah. So a calm, peaceful weekend. One of the things I like to do on a Sunday for the week ahead is just look at this week. What are those things that are going to nourish me, that are going to be engaging, that are that practice of being me? Whether it's opportunities for creativity, opportunities for social interaction, physical fitness, the works. And so taking that moment to look at the direction for the week ahead, and just in terms of how do I want to nourish myself? Like what's going to be good for me this week? And having that stuff planned out. Because I think also one of the things we'll often do is only start to take care of ourselves or only look at those things that really nourish us, that are engaging for us, only when we're really struggling. So if we only take care of ourselves when we're struggling, then we have to keep going back to struggling so that we'll actually take time to consider what's useful to us and do those things that are nourishing to us. So everybody, especially if things are going well, and you think, oh, things are going well. I don't have to do anything with my mental health. I don't have to meditate right now. I don't have to even kind of think about how do I take care of my sleep? How do I take care of my food? Those are precisely the times when it's so useful for us to care for ourselves. If things are going well, it's probably because we have been caring for ourselves. But unfortunately, we tend to then start dropping that care because we think we don't have to do it because we're feeling good. It's okay to just feel good. We don't have to keep this cycle going. right? This cycle of like taking care of ourselves, then feeling better, and then we drop everything we're doing to take care of ourselves. And then we're like, oh yeah, struggling with the intrusive thoughts. I can see I'm doing all these compulsions all day. I'm on my phone, I'm scrolling all the time. I'm doing multiple things while I'm also on my phone. Okay, I've got to cut that out. We can just do that proactively. It's good. It's really enjoyable to live our lives and take care of ourselves and help ourselves thrive and see that as enough. It's a good song. Dylan. Yeah, Dylan says, I've been watching your members' videos on perception recently. It occurred to me how uncertainty regarding perception can be what leads us into checking behaviors. Are there any exercises you would suggest to embrace having wrong perceptions? Thanks for sharing this, Dylan. So yeah, on the YouTube membership channel, and thank you, members. I know we have a bunch of members here today. Thanks everybody for being a member. Yeah, one of the things I like about the YouTube members channel is we can dig into some of these topics that maybe don't make sense as like a public video topic, because it's only gonna make sense if you're really working on skills. And so perception is a great example of that. So we did a couple videos on perception recently. It is so helpful to recognize that our perceptions can be wrong or are often wrong. And to give it a simple example of why this is relevant when we're talking about mental health is if you think about so many, you can even think about just classic stereotypical OCD compulsions, for example. So many of them are built on us judging a feeling as meaning something that it doesn't. Classic hand washing contamination compulsions. What happens is the more we wash our hands and clean and chase this like clean feeling, the more we're telling our brain that we're dirty. And so the brain will start to judge our normal feeling as contaminated. So we're just like having a hand, but because of this practice of compulsions, the brain's going to perceive it as contaminated. But it's not actually contaminated. But if anybody who's struggled with hand washing compulsions can tell you this. So I used to struggle with hand washing compulsions. I felt that I was contaminated. Like I could feel things like liquids and dirty things and all sorts of whatevers on me. But there was nothing there. My perceptions were wrong, and this comes up in so many different areas. One of the ones that I shared a video about on the members channel was about when we perceive our phone ringing, right? If we hear a ring, a beep from our phone, we feel it vibrate in our pocket, but then we take it out and there's no message, there's no call. That's an example of our wrong perceptions. That's an example of a hallucination, which we then do not catch and we react to. 90% of people, there's been tons of studies on this now, the vast majority of people will perceive a phone beep or a phone ring, a phone vibrate, pull out their phone without recognizing that it wasn't real. And that's just a very human experience. And so we're often perceiving things that aren't there. So then to the question Dylan asked there, like, how do we work on stuff like this? I think one of the things you brought up there, Dylan, was related to you said how, it occurred to me how uncertainty regarding perception can be what leads us into checking behaviors. So it's something I find really useful to look at there is the pressure we'll place on ourselves to chase certainty. And if we look at, right, so many compulsions are just about trying to get certainty. But if we start to say, look, my brain is often going to skew my perception. So my uncertainty may be a product of that skewed perception, right? Because I, for instance, could be totally clean, but the brain is going to be like, yeah, but I don't think you are. So the uncertainty can be a product of that, but then also us just chasing certainty is probably also a result of wrong perception, right? Because if we perceived ourselves as being certain, and we're like, oh, I feel so, I checked that thing, I've gotten reassurance, I'm safe. Well, that's also a wrong perception. Us chasing that reassurance and that feeling of certainty and security, that's also just something we're making up. So one of the things you could look at, I always like the question of what do I like to get right, or what do I like to get certain, what do I like to control? So considering what you like to control, and then for an exercise, it's just practicing not checking on it. And it could be many different things. One of them, for instance, an exercise I worked on, because I used to check if people were looking at me, if I was out in a public place, for all sorts of different reasons. So you might just walk in a public place. At some point, you're going to feel like I'm being watched. And so the brain's gonna go, I perceive us as being watched. And it could be any direction. Either I wanna check to see if that person likes me, I wanna check to see if I'm in danger. What if you notice the feeling and you choose to give your attention to something else? Of course, there's also examples like a phone or something like that, feeling like you heard it beep, or you might receive a message or something like that. Noticing that, not checking it. Perception, I think one that everybody could practice, and another example of where we'll notice perception a lot is judging something you said as maybe wrong or misinterpreted, or that somebody else said as meaning something. So we may start to perceive ourselves as being judged by that other person. We'll perceive ourselves as not being liked by them anymore, and we want to go check that and make certain, or we just even want to replay the conversation in our head to make sure we didn't say something wrong. And so whatever, something like that, an uncertainty in a social situation, noticing the perception of it, noticing the brain go, oh, like you're wrong because of that, or other people hate you because of that, and just considering that is just perception, and you don't have to check on it. So yeah, let us know what you end up exploring and playing around with there. Philosoph, I have so Philosoph, you said you should release a workbook. I have a book which has an exercise at the end of every chapter. If you think something purely just like all writing and exercises, then the courses on the toolkit store are actually more like that, where there's like a quick explanation and then you do an exercise. But yeah, thanks for suggesting that. It is, I like anything that is just really focused on the exercises. Reezy, welcome. I hope you're having a good weekend. Yeah. So you said here, if you're facing a decision and stuck between multiple alternatives with no clear good decision, what do you do to move forward? Make an arbitrary decision and commit? Coin flip? This is a great challenge to run into. It really helped me with articulating values. So one, I'd say it's good. Like we want to run into these situations where we find our values don't give us a clear path. And that's an opportunity then to say, okay, well, in these types of situations, what do I value most? I find it useful when we're making a decision to, usually what I suggest is picking 3 values that we're going to grade the options on, and 1 value that is most important to us. Part of that may be something like taking action as a kind of maybe an underlying support value. Because I noticed that one of the reasons for coming up with a framework to make decisions is because I would just sit and spin on the decision looking for a feeling. So basically looking for the brain to give me permission to step forward. Kind of the brain saying, oh no, okay, if you make a decision now, it's going to turn out well. But actually, we don't know how it's going to turn out well. So we trust ourselves. We say, look, I trust myself to take steps forward, and in whatever environment I end up in, I'm going to look at the context and that's around me, and I'm going to make choices aligned with my values. And for this particular choice, I'm going to decide how I'm going to make the decision. So for instance, if I was making a decision, let's say on where to go, when I decide where to go in the world, I'll often use kind of a key value that's important in a lot of my work, which is just around making mental health and fitness supports more accessible. So when I look at where to go, I'm probably gonna look at a place where I can do some kind of like workshop or meet with community members, or I'm going to a place where I know I can get a bunch of, like I can create a book or a course or something like that. I can make things, I can make videos. That's gonna be one of the key things. That also helps me look at stuff like time zones and things like that, because some places are much more difficult time zones for clients and things like that. So I'm looking at what I want to give and what's the best place to give it. And then I'd pick a couple other values that might be important to me at that time. And then I'm just scoring the different options on those. And then I'll often set a time limit. So I'm saying based on these criteria, in this time frame, I'm going to make a choice. And then I'm going to explore and allow for that learning. So I'll also set things up so I'm not making this like 100% all-in full-time commitment to something, but saying, look, I think this might be a good idea. Let's go try it out and see what happens. And then I'm gonna make more choices. But I would do it totally on those, setting some values. And yeah, I won't know that they're the right values. I'm taking a guess. But over time, we get consistently better at seeing what's important to us in a particular situation. And then quickly using those values to pick the best option. Yeah. So yeah, have fun exploring what, like with these choices, what's really important to you. Yeah, and then trusting in those choices you make. So back. So what to do when you lose the hope about recovery from scrolling addiction? Like for years I cut it off, but then I go back and after all these years I lost hope. So it sounds like you know the scrolling is affecting you in a way that you don't like. And so it's also a great place. Like one of the reasons I'll often suggest changing how we interact with our phones is a great place to start is because you'll see that you can do it. And yeah, an abstract concept like hope or something like that. I don't know what hope is, but we can change our actions. And so changing how you're interacting with your phone can be a great way to see that, oh yeah, it's not about getting like a feeling of hope or something like that. It's about us changing actions, and that's something you can do right here with your phone, if you're on your phone right now. Some people, I imagine, are on their computers right now. Some people are probably watching us on a chip stuck in their brain. Fills off. I said, what kind of meditations, retreats would you recommend for acceptance and perceiving one's mind accurately? So the only reason I would hesitate is just watch out for going to a retreat and going, I am here to perceive my mind accurately. Because again, when we're looking for that certainty, it can quickly turn into a compulsion, right? Just like which retreat is going to make my mind most clean and let me see it. And so if we're going in with that, that can put a lot of pressure on us, right? Because even like, I chose this retreat to see my mind accurately. Why has it not happened? And so at the same time, it is, of course, the weird paradox of meditation is that, yes, you do, I would say, start to have an interaction with your mind and self and body that is more accurate and honest and real and authentic, and not cluttered up with a whole bunch of stuff. But that comes from us going to the meditation retreat to drop all of the extra stuff that we're often doing outside in our everyday lives. And so you could look at a retreat, for example, when I go and meditate on my own, right, there's nothing in the room. So right now, for example, if I meditate in my living room, there's nothing special in that room that's going to give me an accurate perception of my mind. But I would look at meditating in my living room, which is a random living room, which I've only had for a month. I would see that as such a wonderful place to go and practice dropping the extra stuff that I might be doing. And so there I'd say whatever meditation retreat is accessible to you, whatever meditation retreat is going to be an accessible opportunity for you to practice dropping the stuff. So too, there might be many different traditions. Or how to say this? Like, there are many different traditions, and there might be different traditions that you connect with. I think sometimes people get the idea and, like, they start going through, like, there's all these different meditation traditions, and which one's the right one? Which one is going to help me perfectly, stick a finger in my brain with soap on it and scrub my mind? It's going to be the one that is most accessible to you. And so I mean that in the sense that you can actually access it, but also that it's going to explain the skills in a way that connects with you and makes sense to you. There are many different ways to go about understanding these skills. Which way of explaining these skills, which practices are going to fit with your past experiences in life, where you want to go in life, what you enjoy doing in life. The only way, potentially, is to explore a bit of them and try some of the different meditation traditions, and then see, which one actually helps you drop the extra stuff. Liz said, any thoughts on having safety items and the perception of a safety net? I'm working to stop carrying anxiety medication that I never use anyway. It just makes me feel safe. I always like to look at, right, like, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? And what's useful for going there? So there are a lot of different things, even things we wouldn't necessarily see as safety objects, that we may not need for going where we want to go. There might also be things that we keep with us and we simply change how we interact with it. So for example, when camping, I take a first aid kit. A first aid kit is just part of my luggage. And it's just part of the things I'll take with me when I go camping. If, though, I was spending time thinking about the first aid kit and be like, oh, I've got to have this or else some bad thing's going to happen. Oh no, if I don't take this, this terrible thing will happen and that terrible thing will happen. Then I'm gonna be caught up in the compulsions. But it's not because of the first aid kit. That's how I'm interacting with the first aid kit. So it could also be interesting to look at how right now you are interacting with some of the safety objects. Another example of where we explore a similar concept that might make more sense is with hand washing. People who cut out hand washing compulsions still wash their hands. One of the key changes is how and why we wash our hands. So even at first, say you were going to have that with you, could you see it as not a safety object. Because if you were looking at it and be like, this is giving me safety. Because when you mentioned safety net, it very well could be beneficial to have a safety net. It might be that that's not even a safety net. So what if you first looked at even just changing some of the interactions with it. And so it might actually be like taking the medication along with you, but just like as a fun thing, like just how like some people stuff Labubus in their bag. Although, as I said that, I was like, no, somebody would have to have their Labubu on the outside of their bag. You can also do that with the anxiety medication. You can put it on a keychain. You can have it like hanging off the outside of your bag like a Labubu. What if it was something like that? So you can also see that, like, because having it with you doesn't have to mean anything else. Just like if someone's like, oh, I don't want to, because sometimes people will also develop like a negative association around medication. Be like, I don't want to have this anymore with me. It means something that I don't have it in my bag. But yeah, what if it doesn't have to mean anything at all? And when we're dropping the meaning we attach to it, if you don't want to have it with you, that actually can help, because then it's just like, oh, there's a bunch of things I want to have in my bag today. Here are the things that are useful. I don't need those things. There's nothing wrong with them. It doesn't mean anything that I'm not bringing them. They're just not part of my adventure today. And then you'll have more space for Labubus. Oh, Dylan, I see, yeah, your phone. Phones, they just light up and they just want attention. Prolidium, much compassion and peace as you navigate relationship stuff. Ryan said, for example, if my OCD thought is, what if the world isn't real? I will say, who knows, maybe, maybe not, in a sarcastic tone. We choose to accept the uncertainty. Is it correct? So there to the question, is it correct? Correct for what? Yeah, what do you want to be spending time and energy on? Fills up. Oh, please, no more relationship advice. Husna said religious OCD, and I look up a lot on scholars' advice on how to live, which can be extreme. I'm afraid if I don't follow like how scholars suggest, I'll go to hell and the risk feels high. Yeah, you can see there, it's often the case that we're looking for a ritual, we're looking for some certain ritual to get certainty about things that are inherently uncertain, like eternity, the afterlife, spirituality in general. And it can be an opportunity to give ourselves compassion. So I'd ask there, like right now when you notice that, just that pressure, I've got to find this right way of living, maybe just pause for a moment. Imagine a kid was with you and a kid told you that. So say you're babysitting a kid for the day and the kid was like, we have to do today right or we're going to hell. How would you interact with that kid? How would you maybe notice with a lot of compassion that the kid is stressed? That kid you're babysitting today really is terrified of doing the wrong thing. And so you can understand why they're scared of that, but you also get to help them see that that's not how things work. But we can understand why they're afraid of that, why they're looking for this certain ritual. And so yeah, if some kid was telling you that, what would you want to share with them to help them maybe be a little more flexible with life? SW said, I have a really bad habit of watching things on YouTube that will freak me out and make my anxiety worse. I don't know why I do it. So do you want to do something different? And if you do, then yeah, what's going to support you making different choices, whether it's not to go on YouTube at all, whether it's to watch a different type of video. What do you want to make visible? So I don't know if you caught it at the start of the live stream. I was talking about the Garden of You workshop, which is coming up next Sunday, where we make maps and we visualize the journey ahead and what we want to grow and how we're going to practice growing it. One of the reasons we do that is because we want to see the changes we're going to make. Because we don't follow change consistently when we just try to leave it up in our heads. So yeah, if you want to use YouTube differently, how are you going to make that change visible to you? How are you going to make it easy to choose something else? William says, I've done all the work through your book. I now live a completely mindful and value-driven life and no compulsions and no struggle. Meditation every day helps tremendously to be mindful. Hey William, I'm glad you're finding these tools useful on the journey. Enjoy. Oh, yeah, I see the thank you. No, you're welcome. I'm really glad you found these tools. Thanks for joining in today and sharing that with everybody too. Vincenzo said, when you talk about systems as something that can affect our mental health, how can we navigate through it if we can't change it or we're living something very stressful with no control? It's just like our environment. So our environment, we could say, is a system that we don't necessarily control. However, we can always consider the systems around us, how they affect us, and take action with that understanding. So we can navigate it, just like if it's raining, we might put on a raincoat. We don't have to go, well, I'm just going to go and be wet because my value is going outside and I don't care about raincoats. No, we can be like, look, yeah, that's going to be uncomfortable to interact with that. So here's something that's going to help me be myself while navigating that. But it's also really important. I mean, like one of the reasons I, started making mental health content and recovery content is because there was a system there that people were interacting with that was often not helping people find tools for recovery. And that was just how the system had become. Right? A lot of the things I did early on was get involved in like healthcare, decision-making, systems, consulting, running a charity in the healthcare realm in those early years when I started out, because it was about helping to change how the healthcare system functions. Yeah, like these are things that we can change. So it takes effort and collaboration to change bigger systems. But that's totally doable. Like in my short adventures, like I've helped write the OCD and anxiety disorder quality treatment guidelines for the Ontario healthcare system. That is a systemic change that then affects. So when somebody is going to receive treatment in that healthcare system, they are getting evidence-based care, ideally, and if not, what happens then is there's this set of treatment guidelines that they can point to that then they can address that within the system to get better care. There are steps we can take to change systems, but we have to collaborate then with people. The larger the system, the more we connect with others to collaborate and change it. But we can do that. Yeah. We don't just have to look out at the world and go, oh, that sucks. No, we look at it and we go, oh, that sucks. And here's how it could be better. And I'm going to connect with other people and we are going to make those changes. So yeah, we can interact with a system by putting on a good waterproof raincoat. I have to get a new waterproof coat right now because my previous one started to become not waterproof. So key, I'm gonna get one. That's how I'm gonna interact with those systems. And then for big systems, like systems in our world, healthcare systems, political systems, global economic infrastructure, yeah, like these things are changeable. They change all the time. But they take effort and they take collaboration. So we connect with other people and we make changes. And the practice of making those changes, of working on them, is enjoyable. It's, I would say to everybody, it's really enjoyable, like personally, to spend time and energy like looking at what's going to help people, what's going to help people access recovery, what's going to help people build mental health and fitness skills. And so how can I make things that support that? How can I collaborate with other people that support that? That's a really enjoyable thing to do. Yeah, there's so many different things in the world where you can say, hey, I see there's an issue here. I'd like to help make it better. It gives a lot of purpose. It gives a lot of enjoyment. And it's, yeah, so it's it, everybody. And I kind of bring this up because I know a lot of people, I've never, and this is very common right now, so many people in our community are looking for new jobs, new types of jobs. It's a disruptive time in like work and purpose and what we want to do in life. And so I think it's a great time to talk about the fact that, yeah, we like creating change. We like having a purpose that positively impacts the world. Yeah, we can all explore things like that. FH said, running my own business, is stress and worrying about the business another way of ruminating? Any tips, yeah, for work-related stress? Yes, it's one of the reasons it's so useful to follow a business design and strategy framework. Again, that's about drawing things, getting them outside of your head, using objective data to make decisions. Many of the exercises that I share in my book, that we explore in like the courses on the Toolkit store, that we'll explore in the workshop, those are adapted from business strategy and design exercises. For years, even as I was starting to share mental health content, I was working as a business strategy consultant and facilitating workshops. And the reason we would do things like workshops is because if people just sit around and think about business ideas or think about problems in the workshop, they tend to not make good decisions. If we're stressed about something in our business and we need to do, especially we need to do something new, we can't think about it. Because if we have to do something new, we don't know about it because it's new. So it really helps to get outside of our heads, make data objective, take real action. Because also when we're thinking about it, it can feel like we're doing something. It can feel like we're working on the business, but all we're doing is stressing ourselves out and we're not actually taking action then. So one of the things I suggest to everybody, so if you're running your own business, one of the things that people sometimes miss when they're running their own business is a structure of strategy and meetings. So if you were working in an office place with lots of desks and lots of people around, if somebody came over to your desk like every hour and was like, hey, FH, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do for the annual strategy meeting? I'm just wondering, have you thought about it? Because I've been thinking, like, we've got this problem and we got that problem and there's this thing we could do and there's that thing we could do. And they just keep coming over to your desk every day, hours, every single day. You would get so annoyed with that person. And you'd probably tell them, look, annoying person in my office, we're having a strategy meeting in 2 weeks. That's a great idea you have there. Write it down on a piece of paper. We'll address it at the strategy meeting in 2 weeks. We need to start doing the same with ourselves because we're essentially, when we're just ruminating business things over and over and over in our head all day, it is like stopping the real work to have that conversation with the annoying colleague all day. Right? It's not productive, it's not effective, it's not going to translate into innovative decisions or effective action. So start to, especially when you're working on with yourself, start to have strategy sessions. Start to have the meeting when you're actually going to address issues, when you're going to look at objective data. You're going to have it outside of your head. You're going to draw things. And then have an end time, just like you would in a real meeting. Okay, I'm gonna decide this in this next hour, and then we're gonna take this action, we're gonna test it, and we are not having this meeting again until next month's strategy meeting. And then every time the brain brings it up, you might have like a parking lot or something where you're gonna write down the idea on a sticky note, but then you're gonna put it in that parking lot. Not until the end of the month do you come back and address what's on the sticky notes. And so having a way so you can shut up the annoying colleague. Be like, hey, we're having that meeting on this date. We're not gonna talk about it right now. Go back to your desk and email somebody. Yeah, so see what would work well for you so you don't have to have the constant meeting and you can make decisions effectively. Well, Sobek, that's great to hear. Sobek here said, 2 months ago, I was asking you about content creation on the live, and now I have 48,000 subscribers. It turns out that I can do things. Yeah, Sobek, that's great. You can do the things. Carol, you just asked, what do you think about medication? Carol, can you be more specific what you're asking? But also, I won't. If it's a medication question, then it's going to be, best to talk with your psychiatrist or your doctor. Especially if you're asking right now about tuberculosis medication or something. Ryan. So Ryan, is it a correct approach for me to just accept the uncertainty and move on with my life? So I'd be curious there. Yeah, right. Why you're why is that a question? Yeah, do you see what I'm getting? Because is there a scenario where it would not be useful to accept uncertainty and live our lives? Well, also what I would ask is, because right now you're trying to get a certainty, and also why do you have to do something when a worry comes up if you're accepting the uncertainty? Or are you hoping that if you say the right thing to the uncertainty, it will go away? Because that would not be accepting the uncertainty then. Yeah, William, you showed a great point. Understanding the uncertainty curve when cutting out compulsions or just going through hard times in life is so important to be able to handle the anxiety and feelings throughout those times. Totally would. I saw, because you have the handshake emoji there. Yeah, it's really useful to see that everybody, so the uncertainty curve for anybody that's unfamiliar with it is just that when you make a change, any change, but then of course, especially when you're cutting out a compulsion, there's just that uncertainty and anxiety, uncomfortable, unwanted experiences are gonna rise. We expect that. And we've got to ride up and over that curve. Because what typically happens is we start to notice that increase in other intrusive thoughts and anxiety and uncertainty, and then we drop off the curve. We go back to some habit. We're like, I've got to get rid of that. I didn't like that feeling. I don't want to have that feeling. And so if every time we go back to the old habits, when there's uncertainty, it just keeps the cycle going. SW, is the workshop online? Yes. Oh, Dylan, thank you for sharing that. Yes, the Garden of You workshop is online, and there are just 2 more spots left. Oh, Roman. Yes, so Roman asked the journaling course. There's a journaling course on the Toolkit store that is down right now. So everybody, I apologize for that. Yeah, Roman, it's gonna be back soon. I don't know if it'll be up this coming week, but it'll be up this coming week or next week. There's gonna be a whole new journaling course. And so there's gonna be a question. So I just say, because I have to I'm writing out all of the questions by hand. And the questions I'll post sometimes on my Instagram channel. So yeah, there's gonna be a whole new journaling course. And so it's just down because I'm adding in the new journaling course into the old one. So everybody who bought the old journaling course will automatically get the new one. So yeah, Roman, I apologize. It is down right now. And it should be back up At the latest, it'll be because it's all written. We're just building it on the website. So at the latest, I would say not this coming week, but at the latest, it'll be up by the end of next week, like next week. So yeah, apologies for that. Thank you for asking about it. I am scrolling on down through the questions. The angel share, good to see you. So glad to be here with everyone as we all navigate our respective wildernesses. I hope you're enjoying the wilderness this weekend. So somebody, oh, your username is unsubscribed, but then you said, my name is Cassie, and I was told that my amygdala isn't working. What should I do? So I'm always skeptical when somebody says the amygdala isn't working. Like if so there have been instances where people have received brain damage that damage the amygdala. So you have two of them. So first of all, if anybody says your amygdala is not working, I'm always suspicious of that right away, because you have two of them. So one on either side. And so they're called amygdalae. But if somebody just said that to you as like they didn't do a brain scan or something like that and a whole bunch of tests, somebody just told you your amygdalae aren't working, that's just become this kind of, I don't know, like pseudoscience thing to just tell people, oh, that's happening because you're amygdala. And that's just not an understanding of how amygdala work. So yeah, but of course I don't know if you were having a bunch of brain scans and then the doctor was like, oh, like, yeah, because of that spike through your skull, your amygdala are damaged. I mean, that's a possible thing. But unless that's happened, yeah, it could be useful to consider that's not true. Oh, William, thank you so much for recommending the book and sharing it with your future kids. I appreciate it. PM. Oh, you're welcome. So PM said, I suffer badly feeling my mind emanates powers that affect the physical or spiritual realm. It feels too risky to not pray and leave it to God. Can you please help me? So yeah, PM, when you think of help, what would you like to be giving time and energy to? So like, what would you like help doing more of? Yeah, so SWIC said, I didn't mean sad, I meant safe. I watch safe stuff all day. Yeah, so what do you want to spend more time and energy on? So if you're saying, look, I don't want to have to watch safe stuff all day, for example. Yeah, what do you want to do instead? Brenda said, lately, I feel guilt if I do or don't do something. I feel guilt out of everything and judge me all the time. I think it's because I'm afraid of failure and relapse, and I believe everything I do would take me there. It's really common that we fear relapse. Right? It's just a dangerous thing, or like an illness that we fear. And so we start to do lots of compulsions, same as if we were like, oh, I've got to touch everything and right, or else I'll get some kind of disease that'll ruin my future. Or the same, we've had a bunch of questions about like God today, and spirituality. It's often the same thing, and like eternity. Oh no, if I do the wrong things, then I'm gonna be in hell. And it really helps to recognize these are all the same fear. We fear doing a bad thing, not doing the right thing, and then being punished because of it. that because I did the wrong things, some bad thing is going to happen to my future. One of the reasons you may notice me asking everybody about, like, what do you actually want to do? One of the reasons for asking about that is because it's a really useful way out of struggling with this stuff. We're afraid of not living our lives in the future. So instead of spending our life trying to get some right ritual to protect the future, the way out of this is to live our lives. We take those steps forward. We go and we live our lives. We do the things we want to do instead of putting life on hold to chase reassurance and certainty. Because that's the compulsion. The more we avoid life because of fear, we're actually making the fear come true. Because our fear is that we're not going to live our lives. And so if we then put life on hold and avoid living life because we want to get all these compulsions done right so that the future is safe, we've already given up the future to our compulsions. So let's not do that. The way out is to live our lives more. And so that feels scary because at first we think, no, I've got to get reassurance about this thing and then I'm going to have permission to live my life. No, totally backwards. We identify those actions we want to do more of in life, and then we start living right now. Kara. Yeah, so Kara, you mentioned the fear around side effects and not being able to cut them off, and that's not something I'll be able to share about with you. Because also I haven't taken any psych medication. I'm not, I don't have any personal experience with the side effects or, stopping it. So yeah, potentially talking with people that have done that. But also in your doctor, for many of these medications, the evidence-based approach to them is to use them for a short period of time. So if the doctor is sharing that, hey, here's how long you're going to use it for, then talking with them about that. Be like, okay, well, if I'm going to use it for that period of time, what's the process for stopping it? And yeah, they should be able to have that conversation with you, but also having a conversation about so if side effects come up, what do I do? How do I report them to you? What's the course of action, and so on. So that'd be really something to talk about, with the doctor, or if there's a patient community in your area or something like that. Race said, I have questions to ask, but when I'm about to type, I realize I just want reassurance. And that's what many people are doing here. At least that's what I think is keeping us stuck. So it is really useful to consider where we want to go and what we want to do. We don't have to only talk about a thing we dislike. We can talk about the things we like and how we're going to grow them. We can talk about what we want to create and how we collaborate on making that happen. It is so useful. So that's also why, and for anybody that wants an invite link, the mental fitness Discord server, that's why it's called a mental fitness Discord server, not a here's a problem I hate and I want to complain about it server. A lot of mental health communities, because of the way our mental health system was set up around problems, a lot of mental health communities are just problem first, right? You've got to have a problem, you got to suffer, you got to only talk about suffering and how much the problem sucks, and just build community around that. So then, yeah, it's very difficult to let go of that. Yeah, we don't have to be stuck there. We can talk about what we want to create and where we want to go. Yeah, William here sharing about social media. William said, when I deleted social media, I was like, damn, that was a bigger compulsion than I thought. It was my last compulsion that I cut out, and I didn't really think of it as a compulsion. Lots of feelings there. Yeah, it's huge. When we were talking about meditation retreats earlier, I think one of the most interesting experiences for people to have if they go on a meditation retreat is just that you're not going to touch an electronic for 7 days, maybe 10 days. And that is so rare for people to have that experience now. And most people do not realize what a compulsion their phones have become and the amount of stress and anxiety it creates for them. Because you're just constantly, like whether you're constantly checking something, right? Every time you're checking something, you're like getting the brain really ramped up. But also just the level of distraction and bouncing back and forth, like totally into your phone, then back out into the real world, then back into the digital world and so on. And that's so stressful for people. Like having opportunities to put down electronics, having opportunities to just be you in the world are so important. In my own adventures of exploring, right, things we can create, what I'm most interested right now in exploring, and let me know if anybody has any ideas, is around stuff we can do offline. So I was sharing on the Mental Fitness Discord server the other day a puzzle. I've been working on a jigsaw puzzle to get printed. We're going to take the journaling course that's getting created for the Toolkit store right now and make them into cards. So also people don't have to go online. You could wake up in the morning, take one of the cards, journal on it. You don't have to touch anything electronic. And then looking at what are some in-person events we can start to do as a community that would be offline. So like, having workshops, having longer periods of time where we're not going to touch electronics. We don't have to take photos. We don't have to advertise what we're doing. We can just be humans because it's so beneficial for mental health. He said, I'm having a relapse of OCD and compulsions after losing my job. Any advice? So yeah, this is something that's coming up a lot. I don't know if you caught earlier, I mentioned like so many community members right now are like changing careers, looking for jobs. It's very common right now that somebody might, as well, lost a job. And so what you're noticing with an increase in compulsions is really common. If we look at compulsions as just the brain like trying to get a hint of certainty or a hit, but maybe a hint. The brain is just trying to smell some uncertainty or certainty again. The brain just wants a good whiff of certainty. One of the ways it's going to do that is by defaulting to old compulsions when we're presented with a big uncertainty. Losing a job creates two, I would say maybe more, but definitely two big uncertainties from that change. Because one, we're suddenly wondering what's going to happen in the future. What am I going to do for a job? But also your schedule just transformed. That we are not accustomed to, and the brain is going to react to by trying to bring some certainty and control. So one of the things we can do to help ourselves with that is start to give ourselves structure. So really considering what did you benefit from in the structure around your work life previously? How can you start to give that to yourself? If you're not accustomed to working from home, an exercise I often give people around this is to start going someplace like a coffee shop or something during the day for a set amount of time. And then when you're at the coffee shop or wherever, you do one activity or project at the end of that time. So let's say you're there for an hour. At the end of that hour, you're going to do one task that you're actually then going to finish at home. So you set it up. And it might be even, say you were looking for a job, and so you wrote a cover letter out at the cafe, but you wrote it out by hand. And then when you come home, your first task is going to be to type it up. You gradually increase the amount of time you can work at home on your own, not doing compulsions. Over time, you can increase and increase and increase those amounts of time as you give yourself more of a structure, but also you're giving yourself things to do and activities to pursue. the structure we often got from work, even if the job sucked. So even if we were like, that job sucked, and I didn't want to go there anymore, and it was useful to leave. It's totally possible. But at the same time, if you were going into an office, it potentially still gave you structure that you followed through on, no matter how you were feeling that day. And you also got to interact with people. And so even if you did not like the people, there was still some benefit to interacting with those people. And so we miss that structure when we're out of work and on our own. Oh, Rick, thanks so much for the donation, Rick. I really appreciate it. And I think it's a hippo. Thank you. Thanks for being here today, Rick, and donating. Ryan, he said, so should we do the thing that we value and live our life no matter even if there's an uncertainty in our life and we can never get the answer? And so what I'm curious, Ryan, is you can't get the answer, and trying to get the answer is the compulsion, and is going to create more anxiety, more uncertainty. And living our lives and doing things we value with any thought or feeling, that's just really useful. So why is there even a question? Like it sounds like the question you're asking to me is kind of like saying, so should I hit myself in the face with a frying pan? Or should I just live my life and do the things I value while having uncertainty? And the living our lives sounds really appealing to me. Yeah, Roman. No, a lot of people are really hooked on the phone. It causes a lot of struggle. Yeah, SW, so just read, so SW, you're asking about the YouTube and stuff like that. And so you said here, I do not know what I want to be doing. Maybe I could try spending less time watching TV. Yes, sure, sometimes we can get tripped up by this idea of growing things, doing things I value more in life, with this idea that we really need to want it, or it's some activity that's very personal. And we can set that aside. Maybe a more useful way to frame it is to say what's useful to you, rather than seeing it as oh, I need to have some feeling of wanting to do stuff. What's useful for you to do? And so you're picking some useful activities. You 100% will likely not feel like you want to do them at first. You'll probably feel like you want to go and watch YouTube for hours. This idea of wanting and feeling what we want is something I bring back to the idea of perceptions being wrong. So we were talking about perception earlier. Perception, just like we may perceive ourselves as being dirty, or we may perceive our phones as ringing when they don't. Our perceptions of what we want and what we dislike may not be useful to us. They may not be accurate. It helped me to recognize this because I liked lots of compulsions. They were not useful to me though. So when we start to talk about what we value, it can help to see that values aren't this deep personal sense of desire, this deep personal sense that this action I'm going to do is intrinsically, solidly aligned with who I am. No, it's just it's an action I'm going to do because it's going to take me in the direction that I'd rather go in life. Long term, it's going to make me much happier. Long term, it's going to take me to a better place. But the action itself, yeah, I may not like it. I may like doing compulsions. I may want to do the compulsions. That doesn't mean they're useful to us. That doesn't mean they're going to produce things in our lives that are beneficial. So yeah, watch out then for also going, oh, I don't know what I want. Yeah, we don't have to know what we want. You may actually borrow values from somebody else because they've gone to a place you want to go. You could think of values as being a lot like baking. Like values are the recipe to make delicious cookies. So you don't find the recipe inside of you. Over time, if you're somebody who's done a lot of baking, over time, you may be able to make up your own recipe because you've really started to learn how things go. You've maybe even memorized some recipes. You can start to change some of the ingredients because you understand the chemistry of how all those values go together. But at first, you're gonna say, look, that person makes good cookies. They make cookies I wanna make in my life. Like, what are the ingredients of those cookies? And some of the ingredients you may go, oh, that doesn't sound right to me. That doesn't make sense. But then you go, oh, but the ingredients that I think make sense, keep making cookies I don't like. So then maybe these other cookies are useful to learn about. So yeah, you may not want the values at first, and that's okay. Yeah, and even as Husna was saying here, I think what you do is about picking values. It doesn't have to be the right values. Just pick a value and an action that aligns with it, and focus on doing it. Yeah, the process versus the end goal. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Husna. As the angel said, go bake the fucking cake. Oh, Dylan, thank you so much, Dylan, for the super generous donation. I really appreciate it. Thank you for helping out in the chat today and sharing with everybody as well. That is so kind of you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Willemijn, hello. I hope you're having a good weekend as well. Billy said, I've been working on recovery for about 15 months and doing so much better. Thanks for all you do. Oh, you're welcome, Mom. Thank you. I'm going on a week-long meditation retreat in 2 weeks and feeling anxiety about it. Any tips? Oh, well, Billy, congratulations on, exploring adventures and yeah, going on a meditation retreat. I really like meditation retreats. I was gonna think about some things to do on retreat as anxiety comes up. I don't know if you caught it earlier when we were talking about retreats. I was mentioning how a retreat is an opportunity to drop a lot of extra stuff we've been doing. So we can say, okay, I'm gonna go on this retreat, and the retreat doesn't have to do anything. The retreat is creating an opportunity for me to drop a bunch of junk that I don't have to do anymore. And that's so useful, right? Because we often don't get that opportunity. So just celebrating that. So if you go on the retreat, you've already created something for you, created this opportunity for you, and it's not this opportunity to do anything else. Like being there is the opportunity, and you've done that. So yeah, really seeing the success as going. So there's nothing else you have to get once you're there, which is fantastic. Because sometimes we could sit there and we'd be like, oh, I've got to win that meditation. I've got to do things right or fix something. And then that puts a lot of pressure, and then it doesn't really go anywhere. So you going is really wonderful. It depends on the type of meditation tradition you're going to be in. I like to go to Soto Zen retreats, and so we do a lot of just sitting. So just sitting. One of the things that I find useful when I'm just sitting, because again, I'll often, especially if I'm about to go on a retreat, I'll often be coming from, things can be busy right before the retreat because maybe I'll see more clients than usual and I'll be wrapping up a bunch of projects or something. So they're all taken care of before I go to the retreat. So it's usually quite busy before a retreat and then boom, no busy. And so the brain, because it's such a helpful brain, the brain finds that weird. So if we're just sitting all of a sudden, so maybe at a retreat I'm like sitting for like 5 hours a day or something, and suddenly the brain is like, why aren't you doing stuff? And the brain will just naturally, when I go to the retreat, want to throw up a lot of stuff. And like even they're just, and it's good stuff, I would say actually. Like now, if I go to a retreat, my brain's not throwing up weird stuff. My brain is like, will present an entire, book proposal already formulated and be like this, all the chapters and everything, while I'm sitting there meditating. Because it's just like, what are you doing? You are doing nothing here. So when I first go to the retreat, especially when you have 7 days, I approach that first day, for example, that first full day. So you'll arrive probably in the afternoon, evening on one day. That next day, I approach that as the wind down day. So I'm really compassionate and easy with my brain. I'm gonna do some maybe meditations that I find are a bit easier. So maybe we are just sitting, but I'm gonna do a body scan for one of those sits. Just because my brain is just gonna find it weird that we're doing nothing. And so I have like a warm-up day. And that's wonderful, right? Removing some of the pressure, but so that further on in the retreat, my brain and I, are going to sit together and be quiet. So that's one of the things, like really approaching it, kind of like if you were going to go on an ultra marathon or something like that. Yeah, you're going to have a little bit of a warm-up. If you're going to a tradition, like say you're going to a meditation retreat in the Plum Village tradition, yeah, you may actually be doing less meditation, but you're going to be doing more mindful communication. It's really important to see that is the same practice. And so not getting a sense of, ooh, no, I'm at my first meditation retreat, I've got to go and meditate hard. No, like that ease is just as challenging and just as valuable, including, if you're doing some, who knows, you could be doing some singing, you could be doing some deep relaxation. That is just as important. So whatever tradition you're going in, have a great time. If there is one thing that I know I really enjoyed learning from one, and I've taken this thermos to meditation retreats before. Tea is often allowed at meditation retreats. It depends on depending on how strict you are. This may not seem surprising at all. So some of the meditation retreats I go to are pretty strict. And so I was surprised that you could bring your own tea. And so again, if you're not going to a strict meditation retreat, this won't sound surprising or special at all. But it was really useful for me to learn, because the first time I went, I was like, we're just gonna be all serious. And then I would see everybody going to the hot water thing until they had like all sorts of elaborate teas that they'd brought with them. And so you can probably bring your own tea. Again, if it's a relaxed meditation retreat, they'll probably have lots of tea and all sorts of other things anyway. But enjoy. Let us know how it goes. Oh, Willemijn. Yes, this is the same Dylan. Dylan, who is helping manage the chat, is the same Dylan we know on the Mental Fitness Discord server. I'm glad the reminder let you know we were here today. Oh, TPM5, I appreciate this. Okay, TPM5 said, you won't admit it and take credit for it, but you have provided light for those when they've been at their darkest and helped them. You have definitely changed my life for the better. I cannot thank you enough, and thanks for being here for us. Oh, TPM5, that is so kind of you. I really appreciate it. I'm glad. It's wonderful to hear that, right, you found these tools, you found these videos, when you needed them. That was totally the reason for starting, right, years ago, to make this stuff. That, when we're at that low point, we do go looking for help. And it is really important that, like, we can find people sharing stories about how you actually navigate this stuff. That there is a way out. That that low point, as difficult and as painful as it can feel, it's actually an opportunity to learn, like, skills that are such a support in life, to do the things we want to do. And it's totally possible to both have that extreme difficult period and also then flip it around and do the things we've always wanted to do in life. So thank you for sharing that today. It's really wonderful to hear. Billy, please, let us know how the meditation retreat goes. You're welcome. Bradley, so what's your advice for building community? Oh, I find it difficult with my family moving away and my friends building their own lives. Oh, it's easy to feel on an island by myself. I think there is a bunch of things that are really important, and I think important to all of us, because more and more, as people, talking about systems, as people are stressed, there are so many competing demands. There are financial uncertainties, there are political uncertainties, there's work uncertainties, there's uncertainties inside us with health and mental health, and all of this stuff can mean that everybody ends up starting to feel like they're on these separated islands and too busy to connect with others. I mean, we give much more attention to our electronics than the people in our lives quite often. It's important that we can be purposeful about how we build community. It also, though, relates to the topic of perception we were discussing earlier. One of the reasons that I was sharing the perception videos on the members channel is because I'd seen some more research had come out on one of my kind of pet research topics, which is the impact of perception of social support on mental health outcomes. And it's key that it's the perception of social support. And if you explore this area of research, you see how there's a very distinct and consistent result between received social support and perceived social support. Perceived social support, it's really tough to say, perceived social support produces the better outcomes. Received social support can even be negatively correlated with health outcomes. And so this sometimes is surprising to people, or they feel it's weird, because you'll hear so much about support, and it's so important not to, loneliness, and it's so important to, have supports in your life. But more so than having the support is how we perceive the support. And this is relevant to everything we talk about around mental health, because so many of our compulsions are about judging something as not there when it is there. Right? If we wash our hands many, many times, that's like receiving social support. But what happens if somebody does that over and over and over again? And they're still going to be like, oh, it's not good enough. It's not right. I still feel dirty. I've got to do it again. And so the same thing can happen with social support. We could be receiving and receiving. Oh, I've got to get reassurance. And so say we're getting reassurance. I've got to get reassurance that I'm liked. I've got to get reassurance that I'm supported. We're just going to do it again and again and again and again. And so not only are we then going to perceive the social support as less and less valuable, we're also practicing compulsions that are going to make things worse. So I mentioned being purposeful with community is a key part of it. So we do benefit from having community. But we also benefit from celebrating the community we have, whatever it's at. Because if we get caught up in like, oh, this isn't enough, it should be different, we'll just start doing that more and more. This isn't enough. We could be getting all of the social support, and if we're still like, it's not quite enough, it's not quite right, we just keep going, and then we're gaslighting our brain. We're very supported, and we just end up gaslighting it and telling the brain we're not supported, and then we feel bad, and then we're ruminating on how we're not supported, and so on. So there's this interesting balancing act here. There is a benefit to having community, and there's a benefit to celebrating the community we have, whatever it's at. And so we can have a lot of compassion for the fact that many people would love to spend more time with other people, potentially even some of us. But they may also be very busy, and they're dealing with a lot of stress, and they're dealing with a lot of fears they're trying to manage too. And so that can interfere with their capacity to spend time with other people. That's one of the reasons I want to explore more offline events and things like that for our community, so that we have those opportunities to practice community. And so we're not having to then spend all of our time on electronics. We, in some respects too, have lost the skill for practicing community. It's one of the reasons I did a 7-day meditation retreat at Plum Village a couple of years ago. And one of the things I really liked about it is that there's such an emphasis placed on mindful communication and talking to other people, without a purpose. Because I think too, even when people have had a lot of kind of social interaction and community in their life, like say they're going to an office or something like that, or they're going to a workplace, or they're working in a restaurant and they have customers all day. They're getting a lot of social interaction, but it's all mediated through commerce, it's all mediated through a purpose. We're losing the capacity to practice community. That's something I see coming up a lot for people. And so one of the things you can be intentional about is, how am I going to practice community? I don't want to be living alone on an island. How do I make myself not on an island? At the same time, when I'm on an island with just myself, I'm going to be a good friend to myself, even as a community of one. Yeah, so enjoy that. Phil's off. He said, I really want to do longer meditation retreats and more often. I only ever did one. I want to be honest with myself and face my fears and my shadow self, and be honest with myself. So you can be honest with yourself without a meditation retreat. If we go on a meditation retreat, we're like, I'm going here to face my shadow self. You might meet your shadow self, but you might also just have some tofu. Whatever we want to get from a meditation retreat, it's useful to give that to ourselves before we go. The meditation retreat will be challenging enough on its own without trying to get something from it. If we go, and so this is something that comes up a lot in Zen circles, but if you go to meditate in general with what's called a gaining idea, you'll see in Zen philosophy. So if we go to gain something, we tend to just create a lot of struggle for ourselves. So NY, yeah, you said there, but the root cause, you said, of so many you said mental health disorders, which I think is like a fun one to celebrate. So for mental and metal, you said it's a lack of emotion and social support. And so I would disagree, the research doesn't show that. And there's all sorts of interesting research on even recovery and social support, and it's the perception. And so one of the areas you can look at with this is post-traumatic stress disorder has a lot of, so PTSD has a lot of research on this going way back. Because the assumption was kind of like, oh, somebody had trauma, you just like give them lots of support. But you can give them tons and tons and tons of support, but if they perceive it as wrong. So for example, one of the areas you'll see this come up a lot in OCD communities, and you can see this happen frequently where somebody will post a really, really common compulsion and insist that they haven't seen anybody else share about it. So compulsion or an obsession. But that actually you could just go and search on the main channel of whatever forum or something like that, and you can find lots of posts on the same thing. But it's the natural result of practicing compulsions, right? Because they're checking, so they're going online to say I'm going to find somebody with the same symptom, and then I'm going to feel seen. I'm going to know I'm not alone. And so what's going to happen, because their fear is that they're alone, their fear is that they have something that they won't be able to recover from because it's so unusual and so strange, and something else that's worse. And so because they're checking for that not aloneness as a reassurance compulsion, they're not going to find it. Even if they do see it, they're going to be like, oh, well, that person's different because of this reason and that reason. And so they're going to perceive themselves as alone, even though they have access to so much support, so many people around the world with the same symptoms. So it is useful to consider that element of how we interact with the social support. Because also lots of people, even we're talking about meditation retreats, going away. That was actually the first thing that did pop to my mind, because I've looked at how I might be able to do this when Bradley mentioned being on an island alone. The first thing that popped to my mind was I've got to look up islands to go on a meditation retreat to. We can be alone and feel completely in great mental health. So it's not to say that a mental health issue arises from a root cause of no social support. There are many examples of people being alone and having great mental health. And so we've also got to look at how we interact with social support and belonging. If we see ourselves as belonging, as living our lives with agency and purpose, even alone, it can be really enjoyable for people. Minchi, you said, how can I enjoy taking more risks? One of the things that I find useful that we can all be certain about is that we can be certain about supporting ourselves with whatever happens. And so that includes things we might see as risky. So we might say, okay, I'm going to go and do this thing, and I don't know what's going to happen. Something might go wrong. But whatever happens, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to look at the context in which I find myself, and I'm going to do actions that are useful to me, that support me. So I don't need to trust that it works out. I need to trust and will trust that I'm going to navigate it. And so I see TPM5 even said that risk-taking may not ever be enjoyable, but there can be a growth in belief and trust, which makes it less tough. That we're going to step into this and say, look, whatever happens, I'm going to grow, I'm going to learn, I'm going to trust and take care of myself. And then we can have a lot of certainty, but we don't need the certainty about what's going to happen. And so often, risk-taking feels scary, and we even see it as a risk because we're like, oh, I don't know what'll happen. But if we're just looking at giving trust to ourselves, and we're, like we were talking earlier about choices, so we're saying, look, I'm going to make a choice based on something I value. I don't know if it's the right choice. I'm saying it's not a risk. It's just very natural. I don't know which path to take. And I'm going to make a choice based on what matters to me, what I care about. And so I'm not risking anything. I'm stepping into the uncertainty of the future, which is just an inherent quality of the future. And I'm going to practice giving time and energy to things I care about. And so that's something really to celebrate and enjoy. Willemijn, yes, what is your favorite skill to work on at the moment? For me, it's being bored and monotasking. That is a great one. That is one I enjoy. So yeah, that's a skill I really like to see those moments where I might like feel like, oh, I've got to do a whole bunch of things right now, and just like catch that, and I like to really make my brain squirm, because then if it's like, oh, we got to do all of this stuff right now, then yeah, I'll just purposely do one thing. So that is always one I enjoyed too. I think if there's one that I am practicing right now, it would be to there are some I can think of. I think one of the things that I've been actually, very purposely considering, as because there's a period of time coming up where I'm going to do. So I'm doing two. I'm going to be helping out at 2 OCD camps, and they happen about a month apart. And I'm going to be doing a bunch of traveling in there. And so what I have purposely thought about, so this is kind of a thing coming up that I'm going to practice, because it starts very soon, that I'll be kind of in multiple places for several weeks. And so what I've been thinking about as a skill to practice as I go through that is setting some simple values around what I will do and how I will create, and letting go of some of the other stuff, because even more than usual, I'll often be in a kind of like just uncertain places. Like I won't know what the work environment is in a particular hotel. I'll be taking a bunch of trains, like overnight trains and things like that, where I might just be sitting there for a long time. And so it got me to consider, what do I really value doing? How can I let go of some things that won't be possible during a month of moving around a lot? And how can I adapt what I do to this kind of uncontrollable environment? So I guess the way I would describe that is lightness. So I'm kind of very intentionally planning for about a month and a half ahead of lightness around values. So how can I say, okay, here's what I really care about, like creating, and I don't have the things with me that, or the environment that I would most like to create, but I still want to make these things. So how do I do that easily and lightly, and maybe in different ways than I would have in the past? So that's kind of one coming up, and so we'll see how that goes. Like one of the reasons I've also been thinking about that is like I'll share about that process of really working well, moving around a lot over the course of 1 month. So we'll see. I'll share about that. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, Willemijn, let us know how your monotasking and boredom goes. Liz. So why has our perception of social support decreased so much? So I don't know if I haven't seen research in particular on whether our perception of social support has decreased. It's very possible. But I think, something that I see a lot, maybe you're alluding to this, is just people do feel less supported, even though they have access through this piece of technology right here. They have access to more people than ever before. And I think some of it is how we interact then with social support online. Like if we're just seeing, like scrolling through somebody's feed that we know as like, oh, I know this person, I looked at what you're doing. That's not social support to us. And if we're looking at lots of people, and again, we're judging them, right, as like, oh, I'm not like that, or we're judging a separation between us. Especially if we're doom scrolling, we're just scrolling past tons and tons of people doing terrible things, and we're like, oh, these people are terrible. I don't like these people. We're probably reacting in a way to so many people now, more than ever before, in a way that creates separation and distance between us. And then the brain's like, wow, we saw thousands of people today and hated all of them. Then yeah, it would make sense that we don't feel supported. So yeah, really being intentional about how we're interacting with people. And so that includes, like, if we're scrolling, we might think of it as, oh, like, I'm not interacting with people, I'm on an app right now. That might not really be the case. We may very much be to our brains, having like speed dating interactions kind of thing. And like dating is another example. I think if people are like flipping through lots of profiles, there's like, I don't like them, I don't like them, I don't like them, I don't like them. Even if they're like just swiping on everybody, I like them, I like them, I like them, I like them, and then getting upset when they're not getting matches or something like that. Yeah, the brain is logging all of this information, and not in a good way. And everybody, we'll wrap up here in a second. Willemijn, yeah, you said, I like that answer. I'm excited to see how it goes and what you experience. As for boredom today, I went cycling for an hour and the roads were very long and plain, and I practiced the silent mind. Well, that was really nice, Willemijn, of you to take your mind for a bike ride and just let it be a bike ride. Yeah, oh, that's great. I'm glad you were able to hear about that on the Discord server and then turn it into practice. Kevin, this is a good last question we can tackle so that everybody can explore this week. Kevin says, when someone is walking, oh, maybe there'll be some more questions. Kevin said, when someone is walking towards me, I panic and don't know which side to walk on. I don't even know where to look. I wasn't like this before. How should I approach this? Yeah, so one of the things, compulsions around eye contact come up a lot, and just other people, compulsions around other people. And so this idea of like, I need to know where to look, or there's some kind of right place to look, or there's some kind of right way to act. What if there's not? What if you don't have to get anything right? And what if, again, this is a great example of where we're practicing our perceptions around social support. What if that other person is not a danger? And what if your interactions with the other person, not a danger? Not something you have to get right. So it can be useful in that moment to consider what we're trying to control, because we see the brain go, we gotta get this right, or else. Or else what? What's gonna happen if you do it wrong? And yeah, can it be okay to just do it wrong? So this week, everybody, when you're walking around and past people, yeah, maybe you don't have to get it right. That pressure, that just assumption that we put on ourselves, like I've got to do this right, or else. Or else what? Maybe you don't have to do that perfectly. How's this? Thanks for being a member on the YouTube member channel. So do you have any tips? How would I handle depressive states during a recovery journey? I've had a lot of physical symptoms and my mind is telling me it won't get better because it's so long. So yeah, it's really common to have a whole bunch of physical experiences on the adventure. So the brain will tell us lots of things. So I find it useful to see the brain as this random guy on the street who just shouts stuff at us. So it makes sense the brain's gonna be like, it's never gonna get better. You're gonna turn into an alligator, whatever. Like that's a brain thing to do. That's okay. The brain can say whatever it wants. But you really helped me to recognize, like my brain, one, is fired, and two, the brain's welcome to just do whatever it wants, because it doesn't work here anymore. So if the brain wants to run around and shout things, that's fine. So your brain shouting like, this will never get better, etc. And then let's say, okay, we don't need it to get better. What do you want to spend time and energy on in life? Because if we start to avoid living our lives, if we start to spend a lot of time like cleaning the brain stuff, arguing with the random guy on the street, because we want to live our lives, and then we're not living our lives. So yeah, that takes us away from living our lives. We don't like that. What do you want to give time and energy to in living your life? And building up that, inviting the brain to come along with you. Say, look, brain, yeah, you can talk about whatever you want. You want to talk about how terrible things are going to be, great, but you have to come with me while I go and do things in life. Yeah, Andrew, yeah, you asked about, well, you said, speaking of dating, a lot of the same issues are present in job hunting as well. Yeah, this is another reason I've been sharing a lot on job hunting and exploring jobs with people, because it is one of these areas that is kind of set up so that we end up easily doing a lot of compulsions. Because if we're like trying to think about how am I gonna magically perfect this application to control what somebody else thinks so that they like me, yeah, same thing as you've noticed, same thing we get into with dating. So it really helps to have some really clear values. Setting clear values around what I'm going to give and practicing these same skills we do with everything. Because if we're sending off a job application and then ruminating about it, checking, it's the same as ruminating and checking about anything else. So one of the things, for instance, with job applications, is to celebrate the application as the success and celebrate the fact that you're sharing about you. So starting to see the job application process, even though, yeah, we want to get the job, if we're doing it as this like, oh, I've got to get something, it just tends to create a lot of anxiety. But if we approach the job application process as a chance to share about ourselves, so we say, look, I want to give people more information about me. I want to give a lot of people, as many as possible, information about me. I want to share things I care about. I want to share about me in the world. Approaching it like that. So each time you shared about you, you were successful. It doesn't matter what happens after that. You shared about you, and you're going to keep sharing about you. Even if you get one of these jobs, it's going to be useful to keep on sharing about you, whether it's at the job or it's in the world. So we get to be ourselves in the world, and we can practice that. We can set some clear, concrete, valued actions around job applications, like a number of applications we're going to do each week or something like that. Time box the amount of time spent on that stuff. Do the action, celebrate it. Whatever happens after that can be a rejection, a job offer, or whatever. That's going to, come about, whichever one. And we're going to keep on doing the valued actions that are actually useful. So what are those valued actions that are useful to the job journey? And then just celebrate those. I hope the job adventure goes well. Hi, you're on set. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you for being a member on the membership channel. He said, I'm on set right now and had the paparazzi came and interviewed me. We're 2 exposures and one just walked by to say, hi, thank you so much. It's good to see you. You're handling the paparazzi and the set super skillfully. So congratulations. Thanks for sharing that with everybody. Enjoy the rest of the weekend on set. Hi, says, you're welcome. Thank you. Oh, yeah, Wilman, thanks for stopping by. Oh, PN, thank you so much for the donation. That's really kind of you. I appreciate it. Impasse, I don't have anything to share about the brain hurting when you're taking protein. that would be something, to talk about maybe with whoever sold you the protein, or with your doctor if the brain hurt continues. SW, thank you. Yeah, everybody, we'll wrap things up here. TPM5, thank you so much for stopping by. You said, remember everyone, the ox is slow, but the earth is patient. It will click eventually. No need to force it or push. Thanks for sharing that. Brenda, thank you for joining us. I hope you have a lovely day too. Everybody, we'll wrap things up there. It was good to see you, talk with you, be here all again at Brain Tech Support Live. We'll return in 2 weeks. We'll be back to Brain Tech Support Live. I will be in a different place. I'll be moving around, and we'll get to explore that practice of sharing and building support lightly. TPM5, yeah, all the best to Australia. And Karen, yeah, I'll see you in Sweden in a couple of weeks. I'll be there. Everybody, thank you so much. To everybody who donated today, thank you so much for the really generous support. I really appreciate it. It really helps with doing these live streams and supporting the community. So thank you. And to everybody, let this week be easy. The brain will say a bunch of stuff, and you get to take it along with you. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. I'll see you later.